other 6 months ago in a totally different format. That was a very,
26 games.
Yes. 26 games in 5+1, 3+1, 1+1. This is totally different. So for today, before we got on the microphone, there was a stat on the screen that said 91% for Hikaru. No way! Who made that stat? There is no way Hikaru wins this match. 9 times out of 10 if they run it. But here we're about to see game 1. Let's go.
And it is Hikaru Nakamura who starts with the white pieces. He wants to not only get that spot into the final, but rewrite their last chapter that happened at the Speed Chess Championship. And it is the Queen's Pawn opening. And for Denis, it's the Knight that comes out. Are we going to see another Queen's Gambit declined? It is the Nimzo Indian.
Yeah, the Nimzo Indian. When you play Denis Lazavik, every game is going to be 40-50 moves. He does not make mistakes. He doesn't make a lot of imbalances. He likes static positions. What that means is he likes the pawn structure to go a certain way. He likes to have clear, simple plans. And we're already getting a position which will involve some of these simple plans, like white expanding on the left side of the board. Denis may be going for a rook down the middle or something like that. But, okay, first non-standard move, Tanya. What is this?
Brings the knight to the edge. Do not try this at home. But Denis has been trying all kinds of things, and it's been working to perfection. Meanwhile, Hikaru is sticking to plan, gets the knight out, expecting him to go shock castle. The route for Denis's knight, eventually, Levy, has to be towards the center of the board. Once the c-pawn moves forward, the knight will drop back, only to go to the a6 square.
And Hikaru is totally content not to take that knight. You can see Hikaru's bishop pointed to the left side, the knight standing that we have talked about already on the outside. Now, if you take it, you would damage the pawn structure. That would mean that Denis has split pawns. You could go for that, but Hikaru's not making any big decisions yet. He's just going to put his dark-scored bishop maybe to b2, and then Denis is going to reposition his knight. This is a typical Lazavik game. To beat Denis Lazavik, you got to grind him down.
But Levy, there is something very non-typical about it, and I think that's why Denis paused, because it was a moment that he can still bring out that bishop to the g4 square, hitting that white knight on the right flank, but instead Denis sticks to plan. He comes back with the knight, eyeing that central square, and I think this is why he takes the pause. Will the light squared bishop come out first to the g4 square, or does he plant the knight to the center of the board? It's the bishop.
Yes, so now he finishes with good fundamentals, and Hikaru's thinking. I think Hikaru, the experience factor here is very important. That +0. They are playing 10 minutes with no added time, which is the most popular time control in the world. Most people who are listening to me right now play that on their phone or on their computer. When this gets down to 3 or 4 minutes, you're going to have a clear plan. You're going to have a good position with no imbalances. White probably can't allow the knight to get taken, but honestly, Hikaru might allow it because it would make the game very dynamic. He kind of doesn't want to take a step back. What does he do here, Tanya?
It's really, really tricky, and maybe this is the moment that we bring up our board as well because of the different plans that exist. Now, you really want to hide your knight, but if you fall back with it, you're pretty much leaving your right flank completely open to a lot of attacks. The black knight jumping forward, the queen landing on h4 eventually, targeting that h2 square. Not a happy decision, but I will say it's slightly surprising that Hikaru goes into an early think. You've got to have a response to this move, or if you're white, stop it forever with h3 a little earlier.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that's why he's thinking, and he's been thinking for about a minute now. All right, now we have that analysis board. I will just say everything that Tanya was saying. This can pop out over here after we have a capture on f3. Basically, the major question is Hikaru going to play something like this and allow it to happen, or move the knight? Now, he could also consider this move, and this move would lead to a lot of trades, a sacrifice potentially, and then the opening of the position with, of course, not that there is nothing there, but these two bishops, the long-range pieces. Hikaru has many, many choices that he can consider here, but we're about to find out, or maybe we're not about to find out. Maybe he's going to continue to think. He spent about 20% of his time, and he has retreated the knight back, and, well, there's your reward for that move.
And that reward isn't a happy one, Levy. It gets a question mark. That just means that black can start setting up forces on the right flank, and this is what we were talking about. The black knight ready to pounce over to g4. The white bishop, the light squared bishop, is going to get trade off with this last move that Denis has just played. Then watch out, knight coming forward, queen coming ahead. There are potential for kingside attack. The other knight on the left flank for black also has a clear route to the right side.
If you force Denis Lazavik into a dynamic attacking game, it's not his style, but he will go for it. Now, one thing I have noticed about him, he loves to remaneuver his pieces. So he has traded this bishop. Now, you can count the pawns here. Hikaru has a lot of pawns on dark squares. He just had even more before that last move, which means his bishop is not very good. That move is very non-conventional, Tanya, right? He weakens the pawn right next to it on e3, but he keeps out the black knight. Hikaru kind of bobbing his head. He stopped the attack. But what does he do now? His position is so passive, any pawn that he pushes, everything else gets weakened.
And I think he's getting ready to step out of that passivity that you're pointing out. The rook's at the center. What he's aiming for, Hikaru Nakamura, is a well-timed e4 break. But there are pawns to be defended before that e-pawn can move one step ahead right now. Meanwhile, Denis Lazavik setting up some breaks of his own. The rook X-raying the white queen. Ideas of c5. It just feels like Denis is the happier of the two. on the board and the clock out of the opening.
Absolutely. When we talk about who has a better position in chess, you need material, which is even, then you need king safety, which is a little bit better for black. I mean, there's no hope in a million years Hikaru's pieces are going to launch an attack. And really, Denis then controls the better piece placement. His knights and bishops are better than Hikaru's. Look at Hikaru's dark squared bishop on b2. You would have told me it's a bishop. I wouldn't have known. It literally looks like the pawn on the home square. And the knights don't have a lot of forward mobility. Tanya, this last move b4 right away runs into a strike from Denis. Well timed, and he's going to chop that down. Yeah, black's position is really good here.
Super healthy pawn formation right there with the target on that B file that you're pointing out. The black queen ready to jump on at the right moment to double down on it as well. Now, minority attack for white is a very typical plan in these opening, the Carlsbad structure. So Hikaru really wants a well-timed B5, but needs to make sure there's no counter C5 to that move right now.
Actually,
this is still going to be a fun middle game.
I think Denis should just put the best way to stop a pawn from moving forward is to put your own pawn forward, right?
Ooh.
Like if Denis with the black pieces here moves that same B pawn 2 squares up, locks the position, gains total control. He doesn't. He's baiting Hikaru. I don't know if I love this. He could have shut him down, but maybe he's setting a little trap for Hikaru.
It's coming. B5 is coming. The battery that's just been set up, the B pawn under fire right now. Hikaru's calculating. I push the B pawn. Denis pushes the C pawn. Who does that favor? There is a central D pawn under fire as well. Tactics in the air. If Denis does not get a successful C-pawn push right now, it's advantage Hikaru.
I actually can't believe he didn't lock it down. That's
Ooh,
such a...
whoa.
Wow.
That's
I don't
the other
know,
side of the board.
I don't know who this is, but Denis Lazavik must have had an energy drink at the halftime break of today because he could have played B5 and totally shut down Hikaru's play. The best way to react to being attacked on one side of the board sometimes is to strike back in the middle or on the complete opposite side. And now Hikaru's got a lot to think about.
It makes a lot of sense when all your opponent's pieces are on one flank. And, you know, we're not the only surprised ones here. Did you see what Hikaru just showed us on the camera? He's like, Denis, wait, we're not supposed to be playing on that side.
Yeah, exactly. He blinked twice hard, which is, you know, Hikaru face number 17 when he's playing. He's probably looking at this like, do I actually have to move my pawn up in front of my king? The black pawn on the next move wants to continue its yellow path forward. Hikaru has the option to push the H-pawn all the way on the right side of the board up 1. If he does that, he stomps the pawn moving forward because he would control the square diagonally, but he allows it. Had he done that move, he would have weakened the dark squares. Against Denis, you don't really want to weaken squares, right? But Tanya, I would not be comfortable here.
This is one of Denis's superpowers, right, Levy? That with a younger generation, you're expecting attacking play, but he's so quick to switch from strategic positional battles to these kind of well-rounded fights all across the board where tactics play a big role. And I'll point out one thing. If Hikaru was relying on the F-pawn moving forward to block things up on that right flank, well, guess what? Denis had another G-pawn to roll up the board. So instead, Hikaru takes the fight head-on. A trade we see, the Black Knight about to jump into the game. Is Hikaru going to kick that back? He does.
Wow, this is very scary. Does Denis have to retreat here, or does he have some sort of tactic in the middle of the board? He does just go back. I don't know if he had anything better. Maybe he did?
Well, he did or not. He went for a flank attack, and traditionally Hikaru does strike in the center. That is the best response when your opponent is playing on one side. You want to break open the lines. Notice how Hikaru's rooks are beautifully aligned for a central break like this. One of the knights is about to get pinned as well. Denis Lazavik, he's looking for ways, inroads towards the white king with the white queen. Offside.
This has felt like such a scrambled game by white. Like you play on the left, then you play on the right, you play in the middle. It's kind of like people in the audience are playing. But like, you know, but it's working out. He's just going to trade all the pieces. And Tanya, at this point, Hikaru would be more than happy with the draw because you're going to have his pawns all traded, and then we're going to get into an endgame, and probably those 2 pawns on the right side are going to survive, and that'll likely be where we at. Unless somebody blunders. We saw a crazy blunder earlier in Ali Reza Hans. That was the biggest blunder of the day. But I doubt we're going to get something here, surely.
But you know, with the rooks and the queens lined up on the same file, there are always chances of those moments appearing right now. Knights are on the board, both knights, which means you have to watch out for those big jumps in, folks. Hikaru looks completely locked in at the Allianz vault, as does Denis Lazavik right now. What is going on in Denis's mind? Is he going to simply trade off the pieces here? Is he feeling like that knight, the central knight that Hikaru has? Wait a second. Did he just open a path of the white rook towards the queen?
I guess he did, but if the white knight takes either the knight or the bishop, black will recapture, and then everything is going to be protected. And also, Denis now has a threat. Both his queen and his rook, don't forget, behind the queen, attack Hikaru's knight in the middle of the board. So Hikaru's going to have to capture here. Here's that critical moment of the game. Both guys have 5 minutes, no bonus time to navigate this. I still think the only way this gets decided with a win is with a crazy blunder. right? It's kind of one of those boards that feels like everything is going to get traded.
This is an insane position to say that draw is a likely outcome right now. I mean, Levy, I will take you up on that one. I say we get a decisive game one. Look at the knights, the way they're jumping. And you know what? I'm going to add one more knight. Hikaru's knight is going to land on f5 via g3 very soon.
It could be, but it does feel like one of those moments where just like both sides are clashing, you can capture, then you can capture, then we all just capture like 4 times. It's a Hikaru video, Tanya. It takes, and then we just trade, and then it's a draw. That's the way it works.
If you have a decisive result, how many caps in your recap video will we have then?
Oh, well, it's Hikaru, look at deep in thought, but now he's down a minute and a half. He's down a minute and a half. He doesn't like either capture. And I don't think taking the knight is correct, right? Like, I think if you're going to capture anything, you go for the bishop, the long-range piece. But Hikaru doesn't like something. I'm not liking this body language here.
I get the feeling if you see a trade of the minor pieces right now, it would help Denis more than Hikaru. Hikaru needs to complicate because positionally, structurally, Hikaru does have a weakness of the d pawn. And you've got a beautiful square for the black knight to land on d5, which will shut off the queen and the white bishop as well. So Hikaru needs to play with tempo. He does go for the knight trade, and I think you were on point. We see the bar go all the way down. Is that a massive blunder? What has Hikaru missed?
I think he has missed something. I don't think Denis actually has to capture here the pawn on c6, a very, very big moment. And wow, they both just totally miss it. There was a check on the e2 square. There was knight to e2 possible on the previous move, and now this...
It would have been game over, Levy. You've got to show that line really quickly. Let's just go back on our analysis board.
Yes.
A golden opportunity missed for Denis Lazavik to take a point here.
Knight to e2 check defended by the rook, and queen in, and that was lights out. The queen was mating on the next move. This is an unfathomable double blunder, right? Like if let me just put this on the board here, instead of this capture, we would have had this, the king coming here, and queen down, and you can't, there's nothing you can do. You got to give this up, and that's game over.
It would have been, would have, should have, could have, but instead we see a quick capture on c6, and let's get up our live board one more time, and maybe now we're heading towards your prediction, but that was a massive moment for Denis.
Can I just say, first time in the caster booth, I said unless somebody does a horrendous blunder, which instantly gets granted to us, I think Denis, honestly, he's like too solid for his own good. He's not like, oh, I'm just going to win by checkmate every game. He's like, oh, okay, he take my pawn. Yeah, okay, I take back. Yeah. Like it's just like we trade pawns. I mean, he's not, no, I just didn't think Hikaru could blunder like this. But like, how did you just hang mate? Like in the middle of this game, that's game one. That's semifinal nerves.
It really is, but I will say moments like that against players like Hikaru Nakamura come far and few, and when they do, you have to seize that opportunity. You might look back and this might be the moment you come to regret, because look at this, it almost feels like Denis has a match strategy. I'm happy with game one, trading everything off, just settling into the match and getting a draw.
And that's exactly where we are going. Neither one of, well, Denis never looks happy or unhappy. I can never tell, right? But Hikaru's kind of like, all right, well, the worst is over. And the thing is, he'll never know how bad it was.
If Hikaru had the book of expressions, where there were about 999 of them, I think Denis's book of expression wouldn't have a single page.
Oh, yeah. I remember you used to be able to buy these like blank books in the store that had nothing in them. They were just blank pages, and you could name the title anything. Like, the hopes of Gotham Chess becoming a Grandmaster. There's no hopes inside this book. It's just blank pages. So
I feel the pain.
And there's C5. We're going to probably get a trade here, and there's going to be no pages in that book. Actually, can you... No, you can't push this pawn.
You can't push the pawn. You can definitely not take the pawn at the center. There is a pin along the C line right now. So Hikaru taking that opportunity to put his king to a better square. And this might be the moment that Denis wants to improve the position of his pieces. It just felt like getting a draw in that game one is what resulted in Denis not going for that line, which would have given him a big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think it was advanced. It was game over.
It was just game over.
Yeah, it was literally just like, it was a fatal, fatal mistake. And I will add, these two got to this round through Armageddon.
Yes.
That's not even like a real even game because of the time format and everything, but they haven't won a game or lost a game yet. Both of them have 4 draws today, and now they will have 5, right? So this is just super stable, but something's got to break.
At some point, that's going to change, Levy, and it might happen sooner than later. Well, the knight does fall back, still position in the balance. Denis just making sure that now his rook is free, now that the black knight and bishop defend that c5 pawn. Next, looking at inroads for his own rook via the A line.
These pawns will be traded at some moment. Whoa, did Hikaru... Oh, wow. Okay, that was a mouse thing. he obviously maybe picked it up, maybe a drag. The mouse slip here would be terrible. All right, we're going to get pawn takes pawn, Tanya.
Pawn takes pawn. The rook has moved away. There is a threat on the board right now. Something's got to give. Do you defend that pawn, keep the tension? Hikaru looks like he's also getting ready to just shake hands. Well, in this case, not shake hands just yet, but draw very, very likely right now. I have to say, starting with the black pieces and having absolutely no problems to solve, this has been a good game by Denis, apart from that one move massive miss.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, Hikaru might offer a rook trade here. That would be, okay, or he does that. We can't forget, you can make faces, right, and everything, but there's still a... Wow, they just agree. I was just about to give this whole spiel about why, 50 seconds, but first game is a draw.
It ends in a draw, and it's Hikaru Nakamura who makes a move and offers that draw on his screen, accepted by Denis Lazavik with that knight retreat right now. Game 2 about to begin. It will be Denis Lazavik with the white pieces. But we have to talk about that moment. And I'm glad that Denis doesn't realize it, because he did take a pause before capturing the pawn. We would have had a completely different narrative had he given a check. It's check captures threats. You always look for checks in a position, Levy.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's still a reason we're talking about them and they're playing, right? So the percent chance that they miss something like that, they both missed it. It happens in chess. You have mutual blindness. You have a respect for the quality of the moves that your opponents are making. And you both kind of think the game is supposed to follow a flow. You don't just think, oh, one person's just going to slip on, on ice and boom, hit their head. Like, that's not how either of them is really processing. So, as always there, Denis Lazavik, full of emotion after that one.
It's also the kind of moment, if someone pats you on your back, you know there's something to look for. You find it in under 1 second right there, players of this caliber, but with absolutely no idea that is the critical moment. We saw the capture, which gave away the advantage, and Hikaru Nakamura never let it slip one more time. A very peaceful draw at the end of it. Both players finding their rhythm right now. 5 games remaining. We might even have an Armageddon if this goes down to that. What are we expecting from an opening approach by Denis?
1d4.
A queen spawn opening has been predicted. I will go with the knight coming out first. I think keeping things flexible, we might see Denis employ the Reti opening is my prediction. It's half a point apiece. Denis getting ready.
Denis has been expanding his opening repertoire recently. A couple of years ago, I would have said, he only plays the queen's pawn, and with black, he plays a couple of different openings, but he played a lot of Sicilian defenses against Magnus with black, and he might play knight f3. He also could play e4. He's basically expanded to the 4 major moves with white. So that's amazing, considering he's only 19, and clearly, in this format, in speed games, and even in esports, he's like a top 3, top 4 player in the world. So it's amazing.
And I think to get there, Levy, you have to have the breadth more than the depth in your opening. Just be able to lash out with different first moves. I'm also going to just talk about what happened in their previous massive encounter back in February at the Speed Chess Championship. 26 games were played between these two players. Denis won that match with a 1-point margin. Today is just the best of 6, and it was exactly that win against Hikaru Nakamura that got Denis to Paris, that got him to the Esports World Cup. A win today, and it's the finals for him.
And let's not forget, Hikaru was 3 or 4 moves away, and we do have a queen spawn, but Hikaru was 3 or 4 moves away from tying that match. It really came down to the last 3 or 4 seconds, and we could be having a totally different conversation. So Denis playing the Catalan, very famous opening, very solid opening, very interesting opening. Hikaru playing, I have no idea what. I have never seen this in my life.
It started as a Tarrasch opening, has sort of transposed into a Catalan structure with the white bishop. The entire center is gone. A very symmetrical pawn formation right here. 4 versus 4 on one side, 2 versus 2 on the other. The problem for black is development as quickly as possible, and that's what they're doing on that left flank. Hikaru trying to challenge that white bishop, getting his own on the c6 square.
This is where 99% of chess players on Earth drown against Denis Lazavik. He gets you in a position where even though the pawns are the exact same, even though the pieces are the exact same, he applies the pressure. He's like, honestly, I don't know if he's even better already at positional chess than Magnus was at the same age.
Whoa.
At the same age, at 19, right? He is so good. His role model in many ways, the way he plays, is very Magnus-like. This kind of turning the screw and everything. So I really like the way that he plays. But I think Hikaru is going for like a game-killing mode here, right? He went totally symmetrical, and that's what you play when you're unambitious with black. You want the games with black to be draws, and you want to play for a win with white.
It is a traditional approach, and Hikaru right now looking for his second white, getting the pieces and the pawns off the board. The bishop does land on that diagonal. What you pointed out about Denis's style, very mature for his age. He also handles the endgames, which are traditionally known as anti-young player chess, incredibly well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to be clear, I do think Magnus is the best. Really, you know what I'm saying? But given the amount of resources that these players have now, you know what I'm saying? Like, Denis has hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities to play Magnus, Hikaru, all the other best players in the world. When Magnus was 19, it was not the same thing. When Hikaru was 19 Denis's entire lifetime ago. He's double his age. Like, it's incredible. And that just speaks to the longevity. But he's had so many times to practice and improve his chess. And why is Hikaru's heart rate 130?
I'll just say one thing, Levy. You do not have to tell us that you think Magnus is the best, because all we need to do is go to your YouTube channel to make sure that's the reality.
If you had a YouTube channel, Tanya, I have heard you cast. Listen, if players want us to not talk about Magnus as much, they got to win some freaking tournaments. That's what I got to say about the players, all right? Guys, win a tournament or two. You know, we're going to talk about other players, too.
Well, Magnus Alireza will be in action after this one, but who is going through the finals in this one? Now, right now, one thing's for sure, that a lot of pieces are coming up. Rooks challenging each other, the bishops challenging each other. Is this racing towards a draw right now? Black's about to get the king to the center before getting the knight out, so that there are no infiltration squares that the white rook has on the 7th rank.
This is a very weird position for most people watching, because Black hasn't moved a knight or a rook. But White has no way in with the rook. The last entire second half of the board there is covered, and you bring the king here because you want to bring the knight out, but you want to bring the knight out to the center. You don't want to bring the knight out to c6. You want to go to d7, and you want the king to protect it. So Denis is waiting for Hikaru to move the knight, because then his rook would get in. Hikaru's waiting for Denis to do something else, because he can't actually do anything.
Say, White's pieces are perfectly placed, but what is next for Denis Lazavik? I will point out it's not easy to rush with your king to the square you mentioned earlier. The g7 pawn also needs to be protected before the king is able to get to the center of the board right now for Hikaru Nakamura. He's taking a pause. He's trying to understand exactly what you're saying. Where does my knight belong? If he places it on c6, there is rook to d7, but right now it's Denis on the move. Does he continue to improve his king? Will he start advancing the pawns to gain more space on the right flank? But pawn moves are committal.
Absolutely. And to prevent the bishop from taking the pawn, Denis's bishop, of course, very active, targeting that g7 pawn all the way down on the right side. You could consider moving your f-pawn forward, but as you just said, pawn moves are committal. Every time you move a pawn, you make something stronger, you make something weaker. He would be weakening the other pawn. But this is actually like exactly how you have to play against Denis. It's a pretty simple position in the sense that there's not too much mobility for the white pieces. And, okay, now, there are some players here with White I would trust to apply some serious pressure, and maybe Denis is one of them. We're about to find out. But I also like that Hikaru has a near 2-minute time advantage, and I don't think Denis is seeing much here.
He needs to make a slow move right now, and it looks like with all these options, you push the h-pawn, do you push the f-pawn, do you move your rook forward to one of the squares on the d-line? The problem with moving your knight away is that you give some activity to the black bishop to land on a nice diagonal. The white bishop nicely placed already. Hikaru Nakamura is ready with his response, and Denis says, I'm ready with mine. My king's coming to the center.
Wow, that is so non-standard. You have this whole position. Usually the pawns go, and then the king, or in this case, the king just walks through the forest.
Why not? It's the endgame. The king has to be an active piece. Maybe a queenless middle game, I'm not sure. With a set of rooks off the board, maybe the king's feeling safe enough right now. Denis Lazavik says, I don't see a single check arriving on that square. What have you got? How are you finishing development? Now again, if Hikaru brings out that knight towards the center on c6, Denis is ready to land his rook on the 7th rank. And that just starts looking a tad bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, and Hikaru's actually maybe the only criticism of
defensive... He does it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say the only criticism of defensive skills is he rushes at some points. He likes to make a forcing conclusion to one of these unpleasant positions. There's not really here. Maybe Denis will just keep going. He brings in the king all the way to e4.
Well, it just waits for a second right now, and this is what was Hikaru's idea. You get the rook in, I'm going to simply defend my pawn, and I'm chasing away that rook with my king stepping one step towards the center right now. So not much to do, not much to improve. The one thing that white shouldn't do is move that bishop away from the diagonal that it exists in. There's a massive fork at the center of the board.
Good thing for us is Denis will not do that. That is, or maybe bad, but he's also shaking his head. I've not seen this degree of frustration out of him.
Do you think it's also because you know that you're playing against a speed chess specialist, one of the absolute best in the world? You want to maximize your chances with the white pieces as much as possible. And the reality is that Denis in this game didn't really get much, at least not so far. A set of knights about to come out as well. Off the board they go.
It could be. It could be. I think Denis has respect for at least 2 players on Earth, and their names are Magnus and Alireza. Because did you listen to the interview yesterday? He said, "I'm just happy I didn't have to play Alireza," which is a massive compliment for somebody around his age range, right? But yeah, now Hikaru puts all the pawns on the light squares. That dark squared bishop will never be able to see them, and we should be heading for another draw quite fast, actually.
What's fascinating to me is that if their set of rooks were to come off the board, then is white playing for more with a clear path for the king perhaps to go forward, or will that also stay within a drawing territory right now? This is absolutely in the balance. Symmetrical pawn structures, rook and bishop, no imbalances in the position. Who blinks first? Do you think we're going to see another draw offer very soon, or will the players play this out?
I have a feeling Denis might not offer. But again, these guys are... Chess is like, it's very old school. Right, chess is kind of like, we don't have to play all this out. We both know that if we play our best, this will be a draw. But we'll see. Maybe Hikaru offers, but Hikaru's playing with black, right? So,
if you're Denis, are you at all concerned with Hikaru going b4, push that bishop out, the black rook infiltrating on the home rank, the first rank right there, get the rook into the game, start targeting some pawns on the right and the left?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe, could be. And maybe Hikaru's waiting, because he could have done it on that move. And there's also one other thing to note. It looks like Denis can push his own A-pawn, right? On the left side, A2 to A3. But then Hikaru would just take it. Not anymore, but on the previous move, he could have captured it because the black rook is staring at the bishop. I haven't seen a king this confident walking through, everything since House of the Dragon most recent season. Okay, now we're getting... Spoilers, by the way. We're getting to that draw.
We are. The white king will also move forward, making sure that the black king has no path inwards, can't advance too much ahead. And you can just look at Hikaru and you know that he knows that this is going to game 3 with a level score. First, Denis consolidates the center. Now will bring his king up the board. Might even reroute his bishop first, but he just continues to play the pawn moves, expecting g4 to land next as well, just to force Hikaru's hand on the right flank.
Yeah, Hikaru, based on facial expression, is not particularly thrilled with these games. Actually, not because of result, but I think because of the theater. I don't think anything has happened. And this is actually the way that Denis beats most people, right? He had all those draws against Nojabek, and then he wins. Denis is an extremely frustrating opponent. Yeah. Very, very frustrating.
And it's like he has insane amount of patience himself. He'll play these positions out till the very end. It's a lot of what Magnus used to do back in 2011, 2012, when we saw him play all these endgames out. But I still think in this one, there's absolutely no juice left. And for Denis, he knows it. Notice how all of Denis's pawns are on the light square. That's some great technique there. You don't want them to be attacked by your opponent's bishops ever. And we're seeing a repetition. And that is it. Game 2 in the bags.
1-1, 2 games down, which means it's a best of 4. Which is really everything we can hope for. We got less and less games, and they have a huge possibility to mess something up at some point.
And who do you think that favors, Levy? The fact that from a best of 6, now it's 4, the margin for error is that much less because the scope to come back has been reduced.
I think by far the biggest weakness that we have seen this year out of Hikaru and out of Magnus. The first year Hikaru didn't finish top 3 in the Speed Chess Championship, and this is the first year that Magnus really struggled in, like, let's say, Norway chess, right? It's that late game decision making under severe clock pressure. If you actually go back and watch when those games got away from Hikaru in the Speed Chess Championship against Denis, and when those games got away from Magnus, it's when they have to do crunch time decision making, 5-10 seconds, time is ticking, they're going to lose on time. Here he has avoided that. And if he avoids that, Denis is probably still the underdog, although the 91-9% was the most disrespectful graphic I've ever seen in my life. Denis is not at 9%. But yes, I think every game and closer margin, it'll still favor Hikaru.
I won't be surprised if that 9% has gone up after seeing what happened in the first 2 games. There's absolute confident hold there by the 19-year-old. I've got a theory of my own of what is happening here, and it's a sneaky one. What do you think of the odds that for Denis Lazavik, he's just trying to tire Hikaru out? I mean, there is an
Are you saying he's old? Hikaru's old?
I didn't say that. You did.
Why would Hikaru get tired? What do you mean?
Just been a long day with all the Armageddons that have
He's
been...
a dad, right? Maybe not sleeping
But this
well.
is what young players do. They do play on the fact that there is more energy on them, and I wonder if that's part of the plan.
Does Denis look like he's full of energy?
Always.
Yeah, I know. Just absolutely bursting. I will say, I have noticed, and maybe I'm looking at Hikaru way too much. He has big muscles now. I don't know when this happened.
Out of context, that's just going to sound wrong.
No, it's not. It's the dad, infusion of energy for life and the passion to succeed. And he's looking, he's looking in good shape. Arjun talked about exercising more. I think Hikaru, I don't think he's going to get tired.
I will say one thing, that these players were at Riyadh at last year's EWC. They know exactly how grueling and demanding this format is, what it takes to get to the top. So a good idea to work on all of that before getting here. And we see a shock castle is what gets Hikaru look up into his classic thinking pose, and he decides to change the route of his bishop. He wants to fianchetto it instead.
This is a very anti-Denis opening. So Hikaru has played in English with the pawn on the left side on c4. Then he played the king's pawn to e4. Then he played the pawns on the outside, like a3 and h3, and he's just going for an equal game where there's no opening path to follow, and then he's going to develop his position. That's because Denis is one of the best theoreticians in the world in openings and also gets clear positions. And here Denis has a lot of options. So I think Hikaru is leaving the door open for Denis to maybe do something wrong. Having said that, I'm not sure he's going to do anything wrong.
It looks like he's got a plan exactly to counter what you just said. He's eyeing that b5 break to get more space, more breathing room for his pieces to come out, so the b pawn ready to move forward. And because of all the pawn moves that Hikaru's made, there is a big gapping hole right there at the center of the board, right? The Black Knight has a beautiful outpost on d4 as well for the rest of the game.
Hikaru just is confused because he doesn't understand why he can't expand or castle. And now Denis probably has to commit to that. Otherwise, your rook move is unbelievably stupid. So now Hikaru does this, and his knight is attacking the pawn. His bishop, he was attacking Denis's bishop there. And so now what? Does he play his dark squared bishop to the right? Does he move it to the left? Does he try to expand in the center with d3, d4? What is Hikaru's idea here?
What is Hikaru's idea? And he has to figure out, because the big break has to be around that central pawn moving forward. The d-pawn is also a long-term weakness for Hikaru Nakamura in this, but right now, the stronghold on that square lies with Denis Lazavik, a pawn, a knight, and a bishop controlling all of that. Meanwhile, for Denis, the question will be, where does his own light square bishop come out? Is he going to target the b7 square, or will it be out to e6? Are we going to see a potential f5 to try to get some play on that right flank by Denis?
What's also pausing Hikaru here a little bit is, I think, a respect for the opponent. The truth is, like, when you play a guy like Denis and you commit to something, even as simple as moving my bishop to the left or the right side of the board, or repositioning my knight, or going for a pawn break, you know that on the other side is like a mechanic, And what? What? He's clearly preparing to move his f-pawn, but when you play a guy like Denis, Tanya, you overthink,
Hikaru literally doesn't care about everything you just said with that last move. He said, I'm just going to plant my king here.
But Denis is stopping the bishop move, and then I move, and I think Hikaru's maybe going to expand with the f-pawn. I cannot explain that last move. Wow, how do you go with the king, and I thought you were preparing the f-pawn push, and now you trade? Like, why couldn't the king be on? Tanya, please explain this to me. I don't know.
I have no idea. This is some super level chess going on right now. The bishops are off the board, and also this king on h1 could fall under pressure once the Black Knight jumps towards the edge of the board, eyeing that g3 pawn. So watch out for those threats. For now, Denis makes a little move with a big idea. The queen can line up as a battery with the bishop and start targeting those slightly weak pawns. I have to say that Hikaru's king looks a bit unsafe long-term here.
It almost feels like it should have went up one square. Okay, he goes knight out to h4, so his rook is opened up, targeting Denis's knight. The knight is going to jump forward to f5. He's content keeping the center closed, because he also had the option on the previous move to move the d-pawn up one, try to open things up. Visually, I actually really like White's position. And then I see the computer system like is a very little bit better, but that doesn't really mean much, right? I think Denis should play a very natural move here, just retreat the knight, stop Hikaru's idea to advance.
Well, I just want to point out one thing, that in chess we often have the concept of pawn islands, right? Hikaru's got 3 of them. You've got one on the right flank, one in the center, one on the left flank. But look at the beautiful harmony that exists in Denis's pawn formation. You've got one big island, just everything defending each other. That just means long-term you'll have more weaknesses to fight against, to fight for in the position, while your own pawn structure will remain beautiful looking. And look at that. What Denis is setting up, he took away that f5 square levy you highlighted. The knight eventually could fall back, and we might even see that f5 break land.
Absolutely. People who are watching this right now must be confused, like, why are the kings just moving up? But this is very normal. In locked positions, it's nice to move your flank and side pawns up a little bit, and then bring the king up a little bit, and you're just improving the position. You're not taking any risk, you're not attacking anything, not weakening anything. Honestly, I like to call this playing tennis. Like, you hit the ball back. Now Denis has to hit the ball somewhere, and then Hikaru has to hit the ball somewhere. I would actually love to watch a tennis match between the two of these. I don't know who would win. Like, where does Denis move? Where does he go from here?
It's a good question, and I'm glad he answers it before I had to. He retreats the knight, and to me, this hints at not the f-pawn moving forward, but a potential c-pawn moving up the board if it's allowed towards the center of the board. I also want to point out one other weakness in Hikaru's camp, that a3 pawn, the pawn on the a file. Everyone watching, be on the lookout for that one. It could be a big target that Denis uses to his advantage.
Wow.
The knight goes back to its starting square, but it's the wrong knight.
Yes, that was the wrong knight. This is like house sitting. The knight from the left side went to house it for the other knight. This is alien level.
Is this guess the ELO territory already?
Oh, absolutely. Like, truly. I mean, clearly from the opening, it's very high level, but Denis must be planning a little repositioning here. Maybe c6, and then like the queen comes up and... Okay, I can kind of feel the Denis. I can predict Denis's moves and have no clue why he is making them.
Well, I like this one. It takes away a lot of squares from the center, so great call on that one, Levy. And as you said, the queen gets out of the way. The rooks are connected now. I'm still expecting Denis, now that the b5 pawn is defended, to go rook a8 at some point. Think about doubling down on the a file. It feels like a plan. That's just going to ask some questions to Hikaru.
Hikaru's now in a position where he has to transform the game. And this, for a lot of advanced players, I have found, is a difficult decision. Do I take Denis's pawn right now? Do I push my pawn? Do I leave my pawn? Because at some point, Denis is going to want to take my pawn. Where's Denis going to put his rooks? Do I do nothing? Am I hungry? Like, there are very hard-hitting questions when you play chess. And now Hikaru has a tough... Yeah, see, he doesn't take. But now Denis can take, Tanya, or Denis can put a rook behind the queen. So Denis has the flexibility here.
He comes in with a threat first. He does have the flexibility. He brings the other rook, like you mentioned. And I'm just looking at these two players. Now, Hikaru carries the rating. He carries the expectation. He carries the experience. And I think the pressure firmly lies on him to make it to the finals. For Denis Lazavik, it's already been a fantastic show here, right? He took down Jan Nepomniachtchi. He won his semifinals match as well against Nodirbek Abdulsatrov. And now playing against Hikaru. It's already been a big statement by Denis. With the pressure on Hikaru, Denis playing with the freedom, that makes him a dangerous, dangerous opponent.
Absolutely. I would argue there's only pressure on three people, and it's Magnus, Alireza, and Hikaru. And it's not even really fully on Alireza, but he was second place here last year. He's been a runner-up in a couple of speeches championships. So, oh, absolutely. I mean, Denis has a little bit of a free roll. He does a little knight shift around here. Still inexplicable to me. I think both guys are basically just at an impasse. That's it. We are at what we like to refer to in chess commentary as a quagmire. Nobody has ever made any progress.
You know what I want is for you to show us the knight dance that we just witnessed. The black knight from b8 going to c6.
Absolutely. So if we just back up here on the board, a couple of moves ago, Denis had this nice position, brought this knight all the way back, then repositioned and replaced it with that knight. So that knight has been here, and let's not forget, that's from there. So these are all the squares that it's gone to. It's now playing as the other knight, and that knight has only gone there and then repositioned backwards. And this is the hard-hitting commentary when the position is super locked. Apparently, Hikaru's position is not particularly good. We will see, Tanya, if somebody tries to make a break and go for it. Now, again, we have been saying, we think Denis is looking in good shape.
But this is so smart, right? It's the waiting game. You just simply keep the tension on the board. And this is one of the superpowers that Denis has. He's not thinking about the trades. He's not bringing in the breaks. He's just shuffling around his pieces, testing Hikaru. It's only when the clocks will go low that we're going to see this position explode. Because not so much is out of the board. Only a set of minor pieces and a set of pawns have been traded off.
And we might, you're absolutely right, and we are about to see. Hikaru's going to move his rook. He's not going to lose his rook. And this move, I think, is coming and is the final form of the Denis Lazavik repositioning. If he goes here and then here, and all of this opens up, this is not going to be a draw.
I want to say that, Levy, you saw this coming about yesterday when you were talking about the King H1 shift that Hikaru just made, which you said surprised you a lot, and that might be something that Hikaru will have to take care of very soon if we do see that knight jump right now.
And if this happens, I think he has to just retreat. I don't think he can allow... And there it is.
It's on the board.
Okay, within a second. And then, this is obviously what we want. How about this for a disgusting move? You just live in the opponent's position. This is like a tapeworm. Like, you just like live in the stomach and nobody can get you out. And it's there. How do you get this bishop out?
This has blown my mind. Everything that Denis Lazavik has done over the last 15 moves suddenly makes sense. All the minor pieces after that nightmare that happened on the board are targeting, including the two majors highlighted there, on that e4 pawn. You can never kick that knight out. h4 will be met by a knight g4 check, forking the king and the rook. The two knights landing on g5, f6 has been genius by Denis.
Yeah, completely incredible. And Nightmare was amazing. To say that this was a nightmare is, that was. And these two pawns are delicate. They were brought out there by Hikaru, but they are standing scared. If you ever capture, you leave doubled isolated pawns in the middle of the board. Please don't try this at home. And, you know, if you push, you're probably going to lose something in the long run anyway. Plus, you're going to open up the entire C-file for the opponent. Denis has a very big moment here. This is what we like to call the critical moment of the game. He has played every possible improving move. There is no further way to improve the pieces. Can he make a breakthrough?
Big question. Big moment right now to figure that out. Denis is reaching the 4-minute mark and he takes a committal decision.
And that was the best move.
Wow.
Denis Lazavik, the queen rotation, and Hikaru does not have a way to defend the pawn. It's an X-ray through the pawn to the rook, not a single
and look
piece.
at Hikaru, he realizes it.
Yep.
There's no good move to save that pawn.
You can go here, but I'm just going to take it. Not to mention when that move happens, this is unprotected. If these pawns fall, it's just a matter of time before the entire white position disintegrates.
Denis Lazavik choosing that moment, Levy, to trade and put pressure when Hikaru's defenseless.
Tanya.
Yes.
The best move in the position. Well, if Hikaru has watched my videos, he will find it. But let's you know, there might be some opportunities here to complicate things. This is an incredibly dangerous moment here for white. And Hikaru, he's got 3 minutes, Denis at 4. Actually, Hikaru's heart rate has been the same. But Denis is now feeling that he's at 130 now for Denis. He's feeling it. Hikaru is beside himself.
He can't believe it. That center pawn, an absolute key pawn in the position, is about to fall. Hikaru needs to find a way to fight for compensation, to hit, well, the chaos button somewhere right now. And just exactly because of what you said, I think I have an idea where your head's at. What is the best move for Hikaru? If that happens, the floor is yours.
I mean,
you will take it away.
We've got to. Sometimes there is a difference in defending in chess, passive and active. If you play passively here, it's over. But again, it could be a shock to the system. You don't react the best way. We will see. It's 1.5 minutes now. Denis up on time. Denis up on position. Can Hikaru save it?
That's the big question. And Levy, we've got our analysis board right here. Show us, what have you got? How does Hikaru keep his counterplay here?
Yeah, so here's the thing.
Got to do your thing.
If you develop here with the knight, it's not going to work because this is weak. You can maybe retreat, and if the queen captures, at least your rook is protected. Then you have to go knight to b3. You're almost solving the position like a Rubik's Cube in some ways. Then you could maybe play something else. You have to set a trap. If the queen takes, you push somehow and something like this. Or you could just send it. You know what I mean? You could just send it. And he plays passively. And that's the thing. Like, it's easy for us because we see the answers. But he goes for this line. He's playing it like a little bit of a Rubik's Cube. He's going to kind of reposition. Queen is going to defend everything else. But he could have went for it. But Tanya, this is looking really bad for Hikaru.
Rook takes knight was a very difficult decision to have been made at that moment. Hikaru plays the human move, but now he's just down a pawn. Denis has an extra pawn, a very healthy one with the black pieces. Hikaru coming in with an attack on that c6 pawn. You can simply defend it with one of your rooks moving it behind. And do not forget, the white king still under fire.
And I was just about to say, now Hikaru didn't find that because he hasn't watched enough Gotham content. But Denis, you don't have to defend that pawn. You could, of course, move the rook and protect it, but if he moves the knight to the outskirts of the board, and you best believe he sees that, that g3 pawn, there's almost no way to defend it.
And that looks like a scary, scary pawn to lose. And you're talking about the knight jump to h5. He first defends it. This is what Denis often does, just consolidates his position before going for that killer blow. Your idea of knight h5 in the air here, something that white will have to take care of. I think what made Denis go for this option is that if the black knight was to jump there, Hikaru will have the option to trade the queens lined up against that black king on the long diagonal. So for now, Hikaru isn't allowed, denied the queen trade. He hates his position. Can Denis convert this into a full point?
This is absolutely peak Denis chess right here. Just a grinding game, repositioning his pieces and maximizing the possibility of impact when it lands. And he's going for the kingside attack. Hikaru's going to have to try to trade the queens. But Tanya, the pawn on e4 is still swarmed by 5 pieces. Have you ever seen 5 pieces pointing at the same pawn?
They usually say 3 is the magical number for an attack. 5 seems like one too many. And I will say h5, what a move by Denis. You know, if he would have moved his knight, it would have pinned the queen. But instead, he wanted to go h4. And we see another pawn fall off the board right now. That's 2 extra pawns. But the queens come off the board. And Hikaru, one of the best defenders in the world, will try and save this one.
I have said this before, and I will say it again. If Hikaru saves this, it's just not fair. Like, it really just makes no sense. Because whatever Denis takes back with now, it's just 2 healthy pawns. And a time advantage. Tanya, why is he not moving? They give Hikaru more confidence, you know, when they don't move. But yeah, just amazing. Hikaru's a minute and 20. How is he going to save this game?
How is Denis up 2 pawns and up on the clock right now? It's 6 versus 4. Hikaru's knights have started jumping behind enemy lines right now. The pawn on d6 under attack. A pin on the c-file. I will say one thing. The bar is deceptive here. This is not over, especially when you're facing Hikaru Nakamura.
That's it. That's really it. Because if you're facing me, or even if you're facing some of the other players in the event, Denis Lazavik would be 100% confident. There is no chance that he is that confident. He's down to 30 seconds advantage on the clock. And if this gets to a minute, I said it earlier, Hikaru hasn't been great in the time scrambles, Tanya, but it's the best chance he's going to get.
But Levy, he's about to lose one of the 2 pawns right now. Now it's just a single pawn deficit. And that bishop on g2 is on a beautiful diagonal with clear targets on the left flank as well. You know, Denis's pawns are on the light squares.
Yes, but Hikaru's heart rate has spiked for the first time in 9 minutes. He's down under a minute. He doesn't see a way forward. He's going for a rook trade, but he doesn't like that. He does not like that move, and I don't think that was good, Tanya.
And Denis reroutes his knight. He knows that it belongs on the queen side. He has to assist that c-pawn. The knight about to hit the white rook. The c-pawn about to march up the board. 3 steps away from queening right now. Hikaru hits the chaos button.
But that's it, yeah. He's going to push the rook out, and he's probably going to take, and Denis is going to get the pawn on the outskirts of the board. And this is likely just losing instantly.
And very likely to win that bishop. The white king completely offside to come and defend that left flank, but it's Denis who's getting the assist. The second assist from his own king. Gives a check, wins the b4 pawn.
And this is it. Denis has to be a little accurate here. The king can't even come closer because there would be a fork.
A trade of the bishop and a knight is game over on the spot. A king pawn ending, and that is it. It's 2 extra pawns for Denis. Hikaru almost looks like he's about to hit the resign button.
He is, and this is losing. If white walks over to win that pawn, Denis will go to the right side of the board with his king and his knight. Hikaru's just unhappy with himself, but he's going to win Hikaru's 2 remaining pawns. And that's it, Tanya. Denis Lazavik is about to take the lead in the semifinals.
David, 1 pawn down, but now the king and bishop too far away. Again, 2 pawn deficit on the right flank. 25 seconds for Hikaru Nakamura. The pawns are coming. The black king about to shoulder the white king, not allowing it to get to the defense.
And that's it!
Denis Lazavik takes the lead against Hikaru Nakamura. What a win with the black pieces.
Just such a typical Denis Lazavik win. That was a very, very nice performance. He can be very happy with himself. 2-1 lead.
It's unbelievable. Levy, we were not able to make sense of all those maneuvers, the piece shuffling that we saw in the middle game. He got his knight from one side of the board to the other side of the board, jumped around with it for about 10 moves, and then suddenly it all made sense. Everything that Denis had foreseen.
Denis Lazavik has, like, maybe not lost more than a game here in Paris. He doesn't lose much. Like, that's just the thing about him. How do you beat him? Explain to me, how do you beat this guy?
Hikaru's asking the same question
I know,
right now.
like, it's crazy.
And we see Parham in the crowd as he's watching the match as well, right there on the front seat. It's a packed house, and you love to see it, Levy. Chess played in front of a live audience. You know, the crowd cheering. It's Team Falcons versus AGAL. The championship race is on. So much rides on this matchup. One player will make it to the final. And again, I just want to say this, that it wasn't just winning the game. It's not the scoreline. It's the quality of play that we saw from Denis Lazavik that makes him so incredibly dangerous.
Both of those players spent about 10 to 12 moves moving their pieces around. And, oh yes, Ale. Yes, we see the crowd there. He's not on the stage yet, but he will be. And let me tell you, he has a very difficult pairing. Okay, nobody's easy in the Final Four, but Alireza Magnus we've gotten used to seeing over the last few years. Since 2024 in Paris, that was also in Paris, that was not Alireza's best, but then, you know, you kind of work your way into it, and as we see in tennis now, you know, players like Sinner and Alcaraz, like, they are excited to meet Novak Djokovic. Maybe at some point they weren't, but now they are. And so, I mean, what can I say? Denis Lazavik is just so incredibly strong. Maybe some of the audience members are equal strength. Some
What a
hidden
match.
talents.
What a strength we're seeing. And like you said, the King versus the Prince is coming up later. Magnus taking on Alireza. That was the finals from Riyadh at the Esports World Cup right there. It will be the semi-finals this time, but right now, I don't think anyone would have predicted this at the start of the match. That we're going to go down, start of the game 4, and it will be Denis Lazavik in the lead, taking a win with the black pieces, starting his next game with white.
All right, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if I would have predicted that. But you can't tell me seeing 91% for Hikaru was not like, who made that? Was that just like a random person in production? They just put it together? I just put 2 numbers on the screen. It doesn't matter.
Whoever did is definitely regretting that decision right now. I mean, that 9% has gone up to what, Levy?
I mean, he's the favorite now. Like, what am I supposed to say? Probably like 55 or something along those lines, maybe 60. Guys, you don't just beat Hikaru over the course of 4 hours and not get more respect than that.
You know, I want to hit on that a little bit because the fact that even after a win, you gave a very conservative 55-60 to Denis, it's only because he's facing the absolute beast.
Yes, yeah.
The speed chess king, Hikaru Nakamura. And we know what he's capable of, the comebacks that we've seen him make.
There's only maybe 2 or 3 players I would list better than Denis right now in a speed online format. The esports style format, this type of format. I don't know if this was played in physical, how much that changes things, but on a computer, in front of a crowd, with the headphones, with the pressure, with the spotlight, this is it. Denis is amongst the field of players, the only ones that I would list who are maybe a little bit better than him.
And it was this game right here as we relived the big moments. And it started really slow, Levy. You know, we saw the pawns move ahead, a very cagey position. The first trade happens. Then we didn't see a trade for a while after the bishops went off the board. And notice how Denis's knight just did a dance from left side to the right side, repositioned itself, and it all aimed at that central e4 pawn. And suddenly the queen, rook, the 2 knights, the bishop, looking at it, and it's the other pawn that falls. It's like Denis just saw all of this, looked ahead in the future, and realized it about 10 moves ago.
I love how we said, oh, it's quite complicated, it's not over, and like 3 moves later it was over, and this is the Denis Lazavik effect. This is the truth. I'm actually a little bit sad we don't get to see, well, of course we might, but we haven't seen it yet, Magnus versus Denis. We keep seeing Hikaru Denis. I want to see the matchup of the guys that have very similar styles, you know, but...
Who knows, you know, be careful what you wish for. Let's see what gets granted today. Now, Lavi, I want to ask him, you know, the players have a couple of seconds off, a couple of minutes off before they go into game 4. If you're in Hikaru's corner, and I know you're a bit of a boxer yourself, what are you telling Hikaru going into game 4?
That is a very disrespectful thing to say to actual boxers. I did a little bit in a local gym, and the second they started actually hitting me and I wasn't hitting
modest,
back,
Lavi.
I stopped.
Humble.
But, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I have no clue what to say when it comes to defeating Denis in a match, because he has a complete antithesis style to mine. Hikaru's just going to have 1 or 2 moments in the next couple of games and take them, and he has to be really careful in the remaneuvers. When the pieces are being shuffled around left to right, he just can't fall asleep at the wheel because Denis will pounce. And that is maybe what has hurt him. Maybe go for a more open game. Less maneuvers, like maybe go for a more forcing line, like play a Scotch. Just something a little bit more open with slightly clearer plans, something with the Sicilian that could maybe open up the game a little bit. But if Denis just keeps playing Queen's Pawn, I mean, you can't take huge risk against Denis. Like, you can't play a Gambit. You can't play the Dutch defense. He's going to make you really suffer.
Hikaru Nakamura perhaps needs to go back to his earlier days, his earlier style of chess, where the house would go on fire, because against Denis, the strategic approach, the positional approach so far hasn't worked at all. 2 solid draws, 1 opportunity at a maneuvering win, and he did just that, Denis Lazavik. Can Hikaru get his kind of positions?
I think Hikaru also splashed some water in his face on the break. I think he's just trying to wake
Or
himself
he's
up a
sweating.
little. No, definitely not. No,
Denis is making him sweat on the board.
He absolutely is. But I think Hikaru splashed some water. Was like, come on, wake up. You're just, you're playing a little too slow. You're not playing with the good energy. And now we have another Queen's Pawn, of course. Hikaru's not going to play to win with black. He's not going to play to win with black.
But do you have enough time for that strategy, or do you just maximize your chance every game? It is a Queen's Gambit decline to start with by Hikaru Nakamura. Denis Lazavik sticking to his pet Queen's Pawn opening. And will Hikaru rely on the next white, or will he try to push for more with the black pieces in this one? The knight comes out for Denis. He's getting ready to castle next, but first, he needs to get the bishop back.
In the game that Hikaru beat Denis, he managed to play a very good type of like closed game, a similar position. He dropped the knight in the middle, just like this against Denis, and at some point Denis took it with his bishop, transformed the game poorly, and just gave Hikaru huge chances, which is very uncharacteristic. If Denis just gets a game where he doesn't have to transform the game at all, Hikaru's in for a rough time. Not because he's going to lose, but he's not going to be able to create some chances.
And the other thing that stood out to me about creating chances, Levy, has been that even on the clock, Denis has been spectacular.
He's, one of the best in the world for sure in clock management.
And that's something to say when you're up against Hikaru Nakamura. We see a trade right now, and Denis capturing towards the center. Now that d4 pawn is consolidated, he can think about going castle on the right flank. What Hikaru's setting up is a potential rook landing on the c7 square, eyeing the white queen.
Denis is going to castle.
Very reasonable choice here.
Yeah.
But he does pause.
I don't know. I think maybe he's going to come up with something even smarter. Maybe he's going to reposition his queen and bishop somehow. I don't know why he's not castling faster. Maybe he's afraid Hikaru actually gets somewhere by pushing his pawn forward and attacking the bishop, but that's such a committal move, and I don't like it at all, but maybe Denis wants to avoid it.
If Shah Castle, what is going on in Denis's mind is what happens if Hikaru pushes that white bishop with c4 next. And he does that. I think that was exactly on his mind. So spot on Levy right there. He wants the bishop on this diagonal.
Yeah.
He wants a retreating square on c2. That's why he moved the queen away first, making sure that c4 is met by the bishop retreat.
I don't think Hikaru would have pushed the pawn. I just feel like the bishop would have been targeting there, and then he would have repositioned. But again, we trust in Denis. It's not like that move was a mistake. It was just kind of a cosmetic choice. And now Hikaru has a very tough decision. Does he move his knight, and where? Does he move his bishop, and where? Does he put that rook 2 squares over to the left, the one that can move, and target the pawn on c5?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. For Hikaru, it might look like the normal approach with the knight development is the c6 square, but that knight really belongs next to the king. You want it on the f6 square. So the route you're looking at is place it in front of the queen, then land on f6, also eyeballing that e4 spot at the center of the board. So Hikaru just weighing the pros and cons. Does he bring it out in one move, or does he take the longer route? Does he bring the bishop out before the knight comes out? Not easy choices, while Denis is ready to go short castle and bring his rook to the open b file.
So much time spent in a position where you can kind of almost do anything, it feels like, but both guys very, very careful. Hikaru, again, is pausing because he knows the ramifications that come up if you choose a bad setup against Denis. The good news is, he can't really mess anything up yet. Okay, that move is a little passive, obviously. It looks like it blocks the bishop. But
it's heading to f6.
Yeah, exactly.
We spoke about this, that's where this knight belongs in these positions. Levy, you're eyeing that e4 square. You want it closer to the king, so Hikaru takes the longer route. And as you earlier said, getting that castle in. The white rook heading towards the b line. The a pawn might move forward. I want to say that Denis has got reasons to be pleased out of this opening. He's up in the match. Many pieces are off the board. There's no big weakness just yet. Good outcome.
Absolutely. That move is played to support the pawn and also open up the path for the light squared bishop. And now I think Denis in around 10 seconds could move his a pawn. It's a very normal idea. He has that pawn on the left side of the board. That's not doing much, but once you push it forward,
there it is.
Yep, this is very, very Denis-like. I shouldn't play any chess. I should play guess the Denis move. That's the way I can get my next title. I mean,
you'd be a GM in that.
He makes it so easy, right? And then he's going to bring his F rook all the way, and then he's just going to keep advancing. And again, he just has a slightly more pleasant position, and that is like all he needs in life.
A pleasant position and a little more time on the clock. And he's got both right now, and a clear plan as well. He does exactly as you said. You're a 2,900 player, Levy, at guessing Denis's.
I'm 2,900 when Denis is making the moves. Yeah. Exactly.
You're getting them all right now. And does he go for that a5 break, or does he just think, you know what, I just need to keep things under control. Why should I take the fight to Hikaru? Plays it slow. I just feel that Denis is always delaying that. When it's not necessary, why go for it?
I was going to say, I think he's going to trade the bishop. Because if Black had taken, he could take with the pawn. He could also maybe take with the rook and then try to push his a-pawn through. But, Hikaru's meeting him right there, and Denis maybe slides the queen over. He might play a waiting move like pawn up to h3, just a simple improving move, or he's going to maneuver the queen over to the left side or try to push. But it's a very chill position.
It's a very chill position, especially because so many of the miners are off the board. Very often for black here to create chances, you want your dark squared bishop. You want the knight on the right side to be able to target the white king. Notice how all of Denis's pieces on the left flank, the king empty, but nothing's getting to it. The queen is eyeing the h2 square, but no assist on the board. So it's all play on the left flank, and clearly it's Denis with a better piece activity there. I'm still expecting him to break with a5, either now or after the bishop trade. That minority attack is just so tempting.
I still think in the long run here, Denis will have all the chances, right? Because when you think about the whole left side of the board clearing out, you can kind of see, and he goes for it, you can kind of see that Denis's structure is more like it's dropped back toward his own king and his own side, and those pawns are hard to target. Whereas if you weaken Hikaru's center pawns, then your rook can just eat them like Pac-Man. You just bring up the rooks and you just eat across. Whereas, like, aside from Denis's c-pawn, how do you attack anything? Now, objectively speaking, of course it's equal. But it's always equal when you play Denis and then you make a mistake.
But Denis is on the right side of this equality. With that last move, he's actually threatening a trade on the pawn. Notice the pin along the A file. So Hikaru won't be able to recapture towards the center, which will leave him with a weakness. And that has to be something that's on his mind. So he does trade first. Again, pawn takes pawn is a threat. He hits the white rook. The rook will retreat.
Literally anywhere, by the way. Probably not to b1. I mean, maybe he considers doubling to either b3 or b2, but yeah, even b1, right? All good.
You could choose any square right now, and you'd still have the threat of going pawn takes pawn to create a weakness on that left flank, the A file. Hikaru won't be able to recapture with the rook on a8 pin. Okay. Expecting Hikaru to solve that problem, you could either move the rook away, push the b pawn. If you want to be aggressive, you're trailing the match. Are you looking at a move like b5 here if you're Hikaru?
Yeah, certainly. But then Denis might take your pawn, because then you don't get to take back with a pawn. But right now, Denis can, I mean, he could just chop everything down. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. He obviously has to be a little careful how he does it. He doesn't have to do anything. But yeah, major moment. Okay,
Of course, you know what he's going to do.
He's not going to take this pawn. Pawn takes pawn here for white is a terrible move, but this is much more Denis-like.
I like it. There are open fights. It is Denis Lazavik who's fighting for both of them right now. It looks like he's going to capture the A line, the only open file in the position. He also has a clear target on that b6 pawn, tying down the black queen and the knight currently. For Hikaru, not so easy to find moves. It feels like the pieces are maximized. You can't move the knight away. You know, if you move the queen, you're allowing the white queen to infiltrate on the b5 square as well. Easier to play with white.
Yeah, for sure. Not a pleasant one. All right, there's a nice Hikaru trade. He's threatening. Well, he's not threatening. He's kind of sending the game into something where... I predicted that move 15 moves ago, but fine. Denis keeping the tension there between the rooks. Hikaru is sort of threatening us with a nap here in the middle of the day. Again, another game. This one, though, there's not too much. Very similar to game one.
But that would just leave Hikaru with 2 more games to fight back. And what he wants right now is a fight. Because if white was to trade on Hikaru's terms, he gets an outside passer. Pawn takes rook would mean something to play for the black pieces there. That A pawn, very dangerous. I'm expecting Denis to either go sideways with the rook, or maybe a pawn takes pawn.
Shout out Robert Hess. He calls these collinear moves. A move where 2 pieces stare at each other and you move, but you don't take. You have to put it where it's protected, hopefully. And the transformation here would be good for black, giving him an outside pass pawn, as you said. Taking here rook takes rook is a very poor decision. It's important for folks in the audience to understand, so he takes like this instead. Now, if the pawn takes Tanya, he would be losing a rook. And I don't think that's going to happen.
I think Hikaru will spot that one, Levy. So instead of that, I am expecting him to either trade the rook and then capture towards the center just to get the pawns connected, or he'll have to play with a weakness in b6 for the rest of the game. One thing's clear, that Denis has no danger in this position. This very unlikely to be the game where Hikaru equalizes the score.
Denis hasn't been in danger since he showed up to the venue.
Today morning.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe he could have tripped while walking. That was the most danger that he had.
I don't know if Denis has been in danger since he showed up in Paris. I mean, he's just been a giant slayer.
No, he's incredible. Very, very tough to beat somebody like this. You kind of have to send him into a time scramble situation and put pressure.
And that's exactly what happened. I want to point out, it was Hikaru versus Denis in the group stages, and Hikaru did beat Denis, but it was only Denis getting flagged in a king and rook versus king and rook, making a blunder at the last moment, having 7 seconds on the clock. Position, game, super well handled. Hikaru wasn't really better.
He was putting some pressure. He was it was like, it was almost assisted in some way. Hikaru could have won that more convincingly than he did, and then he was just like, all right, King and Rook versus King and Rook, like, let's go. And hey, shout out to young Krzysztof Duda, who didn't do that against Nihal Sarin, but here you have to do something like that. We're filling the dead air, because Hikaru's he's not taking back, and he can take with anything. You know what he's thinking? He doesn't want to trade rooks.
But if he doesn't want to trade rooks, the only way to do that would be to hit the white queen, and that's not possible. A move like rook to b5 lining up against the white queen would end up in perhaps a check on the back rank, on the home rank. The queen would be deflected. You can't move the king up because the white queen gives a check. So in the end, even if an unhappy decision, Hikaru does trade, picks up the pawn with the knight. The black knight headed towards the central e4 square. But first, Hikaru lines up the queen, and he's not happy with that decision. It's a blunder.
Oh my.
D5! He blundered a pawn in one move.
Oh my goodness.
He cannot believe it.
That is
a check and a pawn falls.
That is unfathomable of a mistake. It's just, I don't know, the moment is getting to him. I don't know how to explain that. That was just a fork. There was nothing there, and he knew it instantly.
And Denis Lazavik locks in. He's going to make the most of this moment. It was a gift by Hikaru in a dead equal position. A one-move blunder with the finals at stake.
Yeah.
If Denis converts this, Levy, he's going to have a 2-point lead with 2 games left.
Yeah, I simply don't know what to say. It must be the effect of you just don't feel like you're getting anywhere. When you play against Denis, it's like swimming upstream. In many ways, like I say, it is almost playing the way like Magnus plays. But Denis, some games, he's happy to play the most stable, traditionally boring position. You know what I mean? And Hikaru just, he thought for so long, and then he made a mistake. And Tanya, like, Denis, he's not going to let this one slip, I don't think.
It's a very healthy extra pawn, and there's also a weakness in b6. Now Hikaru has to do everything to combine the queen and the knight to come up with some tricks against the white king. But no infiltration for the queen. For Denis, look at the compactness of his pieces. The queen and the knight beautifully centralized. Everything is defended. The knight jumps forward, and this could be a moment where Hikaru might have a shot. Can he? Can he make counterplay happen here while he hits the queen?
That was apparently wrong. He had to move the knight to in front of the queen and create some sort of threads that way. I mean, I don't know. We probably have a little bit of time to pull up the analysis board and show exactly what could have happened there. But yeah, that was weird. So if we go back here, this was a double question mark move because of this move. And the threat is both queen infiltrating and knight takes pawn. And if you go here, you just go back. You just like somehow...
And you're hitting F2?
Yes, and then there's no way to defend all of the position here. So Hikaru actually could have maybe repeated there, and instead he moves the knight to the wrong square, as we see. Let's go back to the live position, and he can't attack anything anymore.
This is so uncharacteristic. Can you also just do an action replay of the moment Hikaru lost a pawn? First, he makes a blunder in one, just moving his queen away from defense right here, Levy.
Right
you know,
here.
he puts it on F6, and suddenly there's a check. You lose a pawn in one. And Hikaru cannot believe it. And then he is a player who's known for his resilience, his defense, misses knight to g5.
Yeah. Knight to g5, because I just don't think you think there's a blunder in that position. You know what I mean? Queen and knight, like, how do you make such a mistake? But he played this move. Well, I don't see it here, but it was in like 2 seconds. He obviously prepared something like this and this, or one of these attacks. That was his idea. And I just don't know, Tanya. I just don't know.
He could have moved the queen anywhere, Levy, just defending that d5 pawn. And here we are, down a pawn. He's going to be suffering. But there's still work to be done.
Yeah, there is. But, you know, at some point, you know, Denis is going to start turning. And again, it's the time. So Hikaru's down on position and on the clock. And that's the tough thing. If he had 3:30 and Denis had 2 minutes, your heart rate starts going up. I'm up a minute and a half. And Denis goes for it. It's a very nice move. But my heart rate would be beating like I'm down to 2 minutes. You know, I have to win this game, but he can just keep slowly applying pressure. And Hikaru cracked against Denis in low time before. Now he's got the low time and the bad position. It's not looking good.
It's not, and even if there's a trade of the knights, it will be Denis in a queen-pawn endgame who will push this one. Notice now how Black's king doesn't even have a wall on the 7th rank, exposing itself to some checks. But Hikaru had to look for counterplay. Apparently,
I'm just sorry to interrupt, but that was not the best move. Denis, that looks to me very natural. But now all the pawns are on the same side. And this is very likely to be a draw, but we might get Denis flagging Hikaru as revenge for King and Rook versus King and Rook. That's where we're going. If Denis forces a draw here, I'm going to be really mad. And Hikaru makes a mistake again under time trouble.
That would be just crazy poetic justice right there if that was to happen. And this stage with so much on the line, this is unbelievable stuff. And Denis doesn't trade on h5. Instead, he comes back.
That was a nice idea for anybody wondering. He was threatening to sacrifice his queen and make a fork there, which Hikaru saw. And now this is a winning endgame. It is a 2 versus 1 pawn advantage. I will just show everybody what exactly we were talking about there. Knight to f3, you might be wondering, why not pawn takes pawn? Because if you do that, there is this incredible move. And
Beautiful.
Denis, ever the technician, right? The mechanic of the position is just going to go here. 2 pawns versus 1 is winning in like 99% of pawn endgames, and especially this one, as this pawn would go, the king would go, the pawn would go, and he spotted that. Let's go back to the live board. This one, Tanya, much more dynamic of a game because there's queens and kings, and you can still create threats, but I think he's just straight up going to flag Hikaru.
Whoa, and there are knights on the board, and as long as knights exist, it's going to be tricky, which is why Hikaru unpins his own knight to get it into the game closer towards the white king. Notice how Denis has this entire camp next to the white king, just making sure there are no checks. Queen beautifully centralized, the strongest square for the white queen on d5. That's where Denis lands. Lack of coordination between the knight and queen for Hikaru, and I love this move. Levy just takes away jumping squares from Hikaru's knights.
Yeah, it's a very nasty move. If Hikaru's pawn was 2 over to the left, this would be much harder to win because his king would be safer. The pawns for Denis would be prevented from moving forward. Hikaru is yelling at himself to make a move. I know that phase. That's like, go. You have 59 seconds. What are you doing? Both guys, 140 heart rate. This is it right here, Tanya. This is really a qualification spot for the finals.
I think you're absolutely right. It is this game. If Denis Lazavik converts this to a full point, making a 2-point lead in the match with 2 games remaining, almost impossible to imagine Hikaru Nakamura coming back in that one. Hikaru has to save this.
And Hikaru going for the attack, the attack on Denis's king.
Big threat. Knight f5 comes in with a fork.
Yeah,
Hikaru can't believe it.
He's getting completely outmaneuvered by Denis, and his pawn is going to fall. He's going to lose the second pawn.
Look at him, Levy. He's 40 seconds. He can't find a
Knight
move.
takes pawn, knight takes pawn. It's just the second pawn. This is it. It is completely winning for Denis Lazavik.
It comes in with a check as well. That's a free move and a free pawn.
Denis's heart rate is 150. He is so close to effectively... Oh, but he's blundered this check and he's unhappy.
And he knows it because the knight and queen are too far away to block Hikaru's check. Has he made miracle happen, Hikaru Nakamura?
It is a miracle. This is a real miracle. Denis Lazavik is going to have to go sprinting around the board with the king.
Wow, the white queen and knight attacking the black king, but too far away from its own right now. And it's a free hand to Hikaru's queen to keep checking that white king.
This is crazy. This is Hikaru magic.
Up the hill, but Denis has to be careful. There's a black knight on the board as well, Levy. Where does the white king hide?
You just go for it. You go all the way to the other side of the board.
But just don't go to c4. You would lose your queen in one. You have to be careful of skewers, of checks. King c4, queen a2 will be game over.
And now Denis is only 9 seconds up. He's going king c5. But Tanya, once he walks away from the pawns, they're going to be very hard to protect.
Absolutely, and the king does go to the other side just as you predicted, Levy. It's there, it's trying to get closer to its own queen and knight so that the piece is able to block it, but then you'd lose pawns on the way. Queen c6, there's queen takes pawn.
Yes, he's trading the queen, he's giving away the pawn. Hikaru doesn't have to take, he could give a check.
He does. And
now
where's your king going? There's
Denis
only
is going to go
one
all the way to the other side of the board, and now he has to take the pawn.
And he does. He plays the only move, and now Denis is left with one pawn. Hikaru's right back in it.
Wow, the knight was hanging, but there's a stalemate on the board. If you take the knight, the queen sacrifices itself.
It keeps giving checks, and we're going to see this happen. Queen c7 take that knight. It's a stalemate. What a finish.
Oh my goodness, it's an immortal queen he's sacrificing, and it's a draw.
What a moment, what a game, what a finish. I don't think, Levy, I've seen a game like that. Hikaru Nakamura doing Hikaru things at the end.
That is just, Hikaru set one final trap. Denis is unhappy with himself, and for the first time in a long time, he is justified in doing so. Tanya, he was right there. He was right there. He wasn't through, but it was a huge moment for him. What a save by Hikaru. This has to reinvigorate him. This next game is so important.
Saving this one, Levy, you feel like the stars are aligning for you. You know, it gives you that hope that you really need at this point. the feel that, you've still got a chance in this game. So close for it all slipping for Hikaru Nakamura. Denis Lazavik, 2 pawns up, a checkmating attack. And then one miss, and Hikaru right back into it. And look at the finish that we have. Hikaru gives up the knight first. Denis takes it. And after that, Hikaru sacrificing his queen every move of the way. We're going to watch that happen. That was just art on the board.
Absolutely. And to be clear, Denis knew this was going to happen. When Denis took the knight, he realized, I can't win this game. And Hikaru gets a beautiful finish, holds the draw. Denis blundered the check about 10 moves prior that started all this chaos. Folks, King and Queen endgames, even when you're up 2 pawns, the Queen is such a dangerous counter-attacking piece. You have to protect your King. He missed that check. He was so careful, Tanya. And Hikaru saves another game.
I cannot believe what we just witnessed. Levy, for me, that was the defense of the EWC this year. That save was the save of the Esports World Cup that we've seen. Fantastic stuff, but it's reset already, and this time Hikaru Nakamura has his final white of the match.
I think this could be the game. This could be the game, because I don't think Hikaru is going to play for a win with the black pieces, which means he's going to play for a win with white, which means he could lose. So this really could be the champion. And he goes for the same structure that he went for last time.
And I really didn't feel like in this last game that Denis had any problems to solve. In fact, if it was anything, we saw him maneuvering, shuffling his pieces around to perfection. The d4 square weak. Eventually, we saw all of it fall apart in the center. But Hikaru sticks to plan, and this time he just makes sure that he takes away the g4 square from the knight and the bishop, and once again, Hikaru getting ready to fianchetto his bishop.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't go e4 on the first move, because Denis would have mirrored him, and I think it's easier to maybe get an open game that way. Like I said, maybe the Scotch or something like that, but... Oh, and Hikaru's just unhappy with himself. He didn't throw in pawn to a3. He needed to kick out the bishop, Tanya, because now Denis got his pawn there instantly with no rook move.
And the reason that happened is because Hikaru's knight was pinned on c3. So a bit of a rush there by Hikaru, mixing the move order, gives Denis early counterplay in this one. Denis gives up the bishop for the knight. So the first imbalance, Hikaru will have the bishop pair for the game.
This is certainly nice if you're trying to play for a win. Bishop versus knight. Problem is, Denis now has 5 pawns out of his 7 pawns on the dark squares. Anybody watching, you trade a dark squared bishop. You probably need to take control of the game like this. I can't believe the computer thinks like black is slightly better. I don't even understand. Like, it feels with all the flexibility, you're going to push some pawns forward at some point, and then you're going to open up the position. The bishops are going to be happy. Oh, this is tough. I mean, Hikaru hasn't had a better position in 4 games.
And I agree with what you said earlier, that it feels like this has to be the moment for Hikaru. Game 5, his final white. He's trailing by a point right now. The final game will be Denis's white, and he hasn't had a single problem.
No.
It's this or not for Hikaru Nakamura.
It was the same when Magnus played earlier against Nihal. I've seen Magnus have white in a must-hold game, in a situation where a draw qualifies him to the next round. He like never loses. Like, he never make a mistake. Always makes the game a draw at least. So Hikaru's got to go for it. How do you? But there's no way to go for it against Denis.
I'll tell you one way you want to go for it is break in the center.
Yeah.
d4 has to be on your agenda if you're Hikaru right now. You're also looking at the black bishop and the knight beautifully placed to walk into a fork. I'm expecting d4 sooner than later.
Yeah, d4 now. Immediately you weaken the square on c4. Denis is going to put his bishop there. And then you just inherently feel like you've done something wrong because he's sort of exploiting all of your pawn pushes. But yeah, I agree. Like, if you don't place the d4, what else can you do?
The only way that I see that would justify not going for the central pawn break right now is preparing it further. Bring your bishop out either in front of the rook, either in front of either of the 2 rooks that we have right now, e3 or b2, and then get ready to push the d-pawn, but it has to be around that central break. Your bishop pair is only as strong as the open diagonals that you create, and that means pawn breaks.
Absolutely. And Hikaru he's unhappy with the position. He has been wincing throughout this match.
I've never seen a match where Hikaru Nakamura, game after game, is down on the clock. From the start to the end.
No, Denis is a monster. He's so strong. And I said it, I think, in a recap yesterday. If he got to play more over the board chess, all his ratings would be above 2,700. Classical rapid end blitz. And he just doesn't have an opportunity. So you look at him, you're like, oh, 26, whatever his over the board rating is, it's fake. Like, absolutely fake. Okay, d5, and there it is. Hikaru's playing possum. Denis makes every possible improving move again. We have seen this for like 2 hours now. And now he makes the break.
And again, that just speaks of his maturity as a player. He never rushes with these decisions, with these breaks. It's always just optimizing every single piece, making sure they are at their maximal spot before going for a committal decision like the one d5. It's Denis to the center first. He can think about moving the queen up as well. Again, I'm going to point out for everyone watching that pawn on a3 that Hikaru has. It was exactly the weakness in that game that we were earlier referencing to. Black can always realign his rook on the a file. The queen can step ahead, hitting that a3 pawn right now. And Hikaru's got that problem to solve.
Absolutely. He might have to move the rook back, but that just looks sad. Because then he takes his eye off of the pawn that the rook is looking at right now. Right? So I don't know. This is not nice. This position is not nice. Okay?
That's one way to solve the problem.
Yeah.
You get rid of it.
Yes, the problem is that now, as the sides will clash, we're going to head to a position with a lot of trades. All of White's winning chances go out the window. And again, you're in an endgame against Denis Lazavik, who has really shown us that he is rising to the occasion, and he very well could be one of the best endgame players in the world. This is the best position that I've maybe seen for Hikaru, and yet there's no way through. Any move you make now with White, there's a punishment on the other side.
It's like Denis gives no weaknesses to play against.
No.
He keeps everything under control, all pieces well placed.
Tanya,
and then, yes.
I just want to say, we have the computer lines in front of us. I'm not going to yell all the moves out loud. They are all ending in a draw in the next 3 moves. Like
0.0.
Yeah, no. The computer wants to repeat the position for White. It doesn't want to play the position anymore for White, because any move that White makes right now forward has to be a trade. You have to trade rooks. If you don't, Black will swarm your queen, kick you out, or Black is going to win your pawn in the middle of the board. Or Black can even push. Tanya, there's also a pawn on h3. Bottom right-hand corner. Like, he can't take it now, but if you kicked away the white queen, you take it on the next move. Hikaru literally has to trade. Look at his face. He knows.
He's struggling to find a way forward, to just create some chances in this one. I mean, it's a 6 versus 6 on the pawns. Everything on the same side right now. Black's pieces, beautiful harmony. The bishop on g2 still hasn't opened up. You can't trade in the center. That just walks straight into Denis's hands with placing a nice piece on that d5 square. Hikaru, he's going to be forced to get the rooks off the board. He really wants to keep the majors on the board. Can he be thinking about lining up on the A line right now? Rook a1, is that an alternative?
Maybe some sort of rook a1, but it's...
I'm just relying on the fact that the black queen is overloaded. You can't immediately pick up the h3 pawn. Notice how the knight on c6 is hanging as well.
Maybe we can pull up an analysis board just for a second, because Hikaru's deep in thought and we just show it here. Like, look, effectively, this is a hot spot, and that's a hot spot, and this is a major problem, because the queen can't stay guarding this, attacking this, and then also White has to guard that. So the fact that this is happening on the next move, that's what Hikaru's looking at. You might have to take. Then the bishop comes. This is a problem. You weaken this forever. You lose a center pawn, which you don't want to do. It's a very difficult position. That's why he's down nearly 3 minutes on the clock at this point, 2.5.
And I'm going to show one of the repetitions that you were earlier alluding to. If you go rook a1 and trying to be ambitious by keeping the majors on the board, black can, in fact, start chasing the queen. Rook to a8, and I think giving up the queen for 2 rooks just works into black's hands because there are all these weaknesses, the pawn weaknesses you earlier highlighted. So if you go queen to b5 now, staying connected to the black knight, black can continue chasing the queen back and forth.
Yep.
And that's handshakes immediately.
Yep.
The white queen can't go anywhere else because there's bishop takes pawn.
And this and everything. Yeah, you can't hang out in the middle of the board. I'm always threatening all sorts of stuff. So now, will Denis make a draw there? I don't know. But again...
That would be a boss move to decline a draw. Up a point. 1 game to go.
Yeah, I think he's very practical. I think he would probably just do it. But, I mean, yeah, Hikaru... And the thing is, Hikaru's not even stressed. The thing is, you get to a point in this match, you're almost borderline defeated. He's one of the most mentally resilient players, but you're just sitting there like, what am I supposed to do?
I'm also going to say, Levy, that's no splash of water on the face that we're seeing.
Not anymore. I don't think.
Not anymore.
No, definitely not anymore.
That is Denis making Hikaru sweat right now. We do see the trade that you were pointing out. Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn is the most human response.
And now, I mean, he really didn't want to do this. It might not seem like a big deal to folks watching to trade a pawn and feel like, you're sitting through a dental procedure. But that is look at this. You got to return to the home square. This is not what you want, but it's equal. It's still a game.
When you have to retreat your queen on move 21 to the square that it started with, also boxing up your rook, none of your pieces or pawns have gone beyond the 3rd rank. you know it's not a strong attempt to win a game.
Right. Just think about what Hikaru did. He gave away a center pawn, helped his opponent activate his bishop, and then brought his own queen to the home square, and gave he gave Denis a more active rook.
And is he about to give a pawn? Can Denis fall back with the bishop, realign the queen and the bishop battery, hit the pawn on h3, and there's also a rook and queen battery hitting the d3 pawn.
Yes. Yes.
Bishop to e6. How is Hikaru going to defend 2 pawns?
I think he was going to push in the center likely, but and again, it's going to get to a point where everything trades. So now you can push this pawn, right?
Does it?
And if Denis takes the pawn on the right side of the board on h3, Hikaru takes in the middle. Now, if Denis takes in the middle, he's going to take Hikaru with the knight, and then take with the bishop, right? Going to take everything, and we're likely going to get a draw. So ultimately, if this takes this, which I don't think Denis will go for, but we'll see, then we're going to get something like bishop takes, maybe pawn takes, and then the knight goes to the middle. Pretty sharp position where you can trade off some pieces and then maybe go like this. It's very complicated. But another option back here is to instead take like this, and then take like this, and then like this. But then you got to be careful, right? You're going to weaken your king, but still you're going to be up. Let's see what happens.
He goes for the central pawn trade, so he keeps it more solid in the center. And look at this. Denis is just being so professional about it. He just wants pieces off the board, now neutralizing the bishop pair.
I don't think Denis thinks necessarily he's going to win this game, but he's just like, well, Hikaru won't.
You said something about draw with black, win with white strategy. He did win a game with black, Denis Lazavik, in this match.
Absolutely. You know, I think Hikaru was trying to play more for a win with white, and let me tell you something, it didn't work. But I'm not, I mean, nothing could have worked so far. Nothing.
We do see a trade on c6. Denis Lazavik, does he pick it up with the queen? That would invite a pin on the d-file with the black rook unsupported on that home rank. He could go bishop takes knight as well. He goes with the queen. Unafraid is Denis Lazavik of rook to d1.
Yeah, this is just, white cannot accomplish anything in this position. Nothing at all.
Yeah. The bishop's just beautifully defended at the center. I would say taking that pawn on c3, that requires guts.
Yeah,
although
for
I
sure.
don't see an immediate refutation to it. Queen takes pawn. But I love how Denis is just keeping everything defended. See how the knight supports the bishop. The queen supports the bishop supports the queen. Now the queen also supports the rook. Everything, codependence, beautiful harmony. Takes the bishop. You could also take it with the rook. Get the rooks off the board.
Interesting moment. Will Denis offer a trade of rooks and sort of happily go to an endgame, knight versus bishop? Or will he play more for a win? Denis is looking at the clock too, being like, I'm up 2.5 minutes. Takes with the rook. Again, very professional. He could have taken with the knight. We would have had some attacking chances. We're not getting any of that.
It's Hikaru who needs to keep more pieces on the board for those chances, and he denies the rook trade right now. He's threatening to, at least hinting at destroying a black's pawn formation on the right side. Denis says, I'm going to pin your bishop. There's a threat on the board. The c-pawn about to triple down on the pin and win it.
Yeah, I mean, if Hikaru blunders that, you know that it's this is not the peak form. He doesn't.
He steps away from that pin, and now bishop takes knight is a real threat.
By the way, the queen can take the pawn on h3.
I completely forgot about that pawn.
But it doesn't matter, because if you go for that, I play bishop takes knight, and I think Hikaru completely understands that that endgame is a draw. But I mean, this move is a draw offer already.
Queen takes pawn. There are all these ideas of giving a check. The king stepping up, taking the knight, queen checks, but I think at the end of it all, once the dust settles, black has enough defensive resources to make sure that there's not a hanging rook at the center.
Yep, exactly.
And maybe we can bring up that line right now.
Yeah, sure.
To give a check, to take that pawn on h3, you give a check on a8, first forcing the black king on h7, and it looks like white is about to win the queen.
Happening.
It's happening. We might see this being played out.
It's happening. All right, let's just go back to the live board. Fantastic. So in this position, if you play pawn takes bishop, and it looks like there's a check just directly in the middle of the board, king is under attack, rook is under attack, all of that is true. In fact, it is a fork. I don't even know if this constitutes a fork because you can defend against it. That's a whole other question. But yes, queen check, you block with the rook or the queen.
You could block with the queen, and he does it. He's up a pawn right now. Hikaru isn't winning this endgame.
Maybe not with the rook, because there would have been some queen infiltration. But anyway, yes, Hikaru's not winning this.
There were ideas of the g-pawn moving up the board, queen going up the board with checkmating ideas. And this is 4 versus 3. This is what we call a position for 2 results.
Yeah, for sure. For black, of course. It's a position with 3 results for white. Maybe. But yes, 2 results. Black can only win or draw this. Now, the major reason this isn't just like a major issue, or it's about to become a major issue, actually, for white, is the doubled F-pawn for Denis, which he's now looking to maybe give away. Denis has those doubled F-pawns. Tanya, this is very tricky, actually. If Denis manages to push that doubled pawn forward, sacrifice it, and make a pass pawn on the outside of the board, actually, this is terrible for Hikaru. His king can't even walk to the right side.
I'm actually surprised, Levy, that the bar still remains level in this position because that line looks incredibly terrifying for white right now. Hikaru hates his position. He's been shaking his head the whole game. He wants the rook to defend and fight against that h-pawn. And for your idea on the board, Denis is giving that pawn back to create a passer.
Absolutely, but it's still even because Hikaru, great defending. He doesn't go back down to the first rank of the board. He goes the other way to the 8th rank. He's going to defend from the other side.
Levy, Hikaru has to win a game. Defending this is not enough.
I know, but he's got one last game, and then he's going to go for it, right? At least he's not going to lose.
That would just be match over. If actually Denis wins this game, Denis is through to the finals.
Denis through to the finals, yeah.
Let that sink in.
King F5, now, yep. And,
whoa!
And Hikaru's sacrificing the pawn, he's forcing it.
You can take it, and the king is cut off. The white king cannot come to defend.
This is, yeah, it's a losing endgame. Now, obviously, Hikaru's gone for this because he thought he had to, but his king is cut off. Denis is just going to bring his pawn forward and his king.
Levy, Denis Lazavik, the 19-year-old, the youngest player remaining in this field, is about to go through to the finals.
In typical fashion, and without giving Hikaru a single inch, or we are in Paris, centimeter of breathing room.
This is unbelievable. Hikaru's giving up. The black rook cuts off the white king. The black king assists the black pawn, which is going up the board. This is the final few moments of Hikaru Nakamura's run at the EWC.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible scenes. Denis Lazavik, emotionless. He knows it, though. That heart rate, I see it. It's 140, Denis. We see you. Hikaru might just resign this game right now.
A minute left on the clock. No hope left on the board right now. The F-pawn marching up. No checks. Hikaru knows it. Denis knows it. Unbelievable.
And there it is.
And it is Denis Lazavik who goes through to the finals. What a finish with a game to spare. Denis Lazavik takes down Hikaru Nakamura. 2 big wins. Unbelievable. What a moment this is for a 19-year-old. It is his first final at the EWC.
Every event that he plays on the biggest stage, he just gets better and better. He did as best as he could over there in Paris, and now he defeats Hikaru once again in a match, slightly different.